Scientific people know very well that time is only a kind of space. We can move forward and backward in time, just as we can move forward and backward in space. To prove this theory, I invented a machine to travel through time. If you pressed one lever, the machine went back into the past. If you pressed the other lever, the machine glided forward into the future. With this machine, I set out to explore time. One summer evening, toward the end of the 19th century, some friends of mine were gathered in my home in Richmond, England. As I entered... Good heavens, man, what happened to you?
Were you in a wreck? You look a fright.
I have just traveled through time.
You don't actually expect us to believe that you have traveled into the future with that nickel and ivory contraption you showed us last week?
I'd give a penny a line for a verbatim article for my paper. I don't mind telling you the story, though most of it will sound false to you.
You're absolutely right. The whole thing's preposterous.
But it's true, every word of it. And if this will help you believe me, here are 2 white flowers I brought back with me. Gentlemen, since this morning I have lived 8 days in the future. Such days as no human being ever lived before. At daylight, I started making the last adjustments on my time machine. I gave it a last tap, tried all the screws again, and put in a final drop of oil. I climbed up, sat in the saddle, and took the starting lever in my hand. I suppose I felt like a man who holds a pistol to his skull, wondering what will come next. At first, I moved the advance lever ever so slightly. Had anything happened? For a moment, I suspected my mind had tricked me. I looked at the clock. I had moved ahead 5 hours. Then I drew a breath, set my teeth, gripped the starting lever with both hands, pushed it to its extreme position, and went flying off into time. Day went into night, and in another moment it was tomorrow. The change from night to day was like the flapping of a great black wing. The sensations of time traveling were excessively unpleasant. It was a feeling of helpless, headlong motion, and I felt the same horrible anticipation of an imminent smash. I went on, still gaining velocity. The landscape was misty and vague, so I slowed down. I was in the same place, only the time had changed. I advanced the rate of speed again. The little hands on the dials raced around faster and faster. I thought, how exciting to be traveling in the future. What wonderful advances man must have made in all these years. Then I resolved to stop. I grabbed the lever. The time machine went reeling over, and I was flung headlong through the air. There was the sound of a clap of thunder in my ears. A pitiless hail was hissing around me, and I was sitting on a soft lawn in a garden near my overturned machine. Fine hospitality, I said, for a man who has traveled all these years to be here. I stood up and looked around me. A colossal carved figure loomed indistinctly beyond me through the hazy downpour. I advanced toward the figure. It was very large, made of white marble in the shape something like a winged sphinx. The figure was seated on a pedestal of bronze. The sightless eyes seemed to watch me. There was the faint shadow of a smile on the lips. Then panic gripped me. Do men still live on the earth? What are they like? Are they still human? I turned frantically to the time machine. I will not stay here. I must get back to my own time. For the first time, I discovered what year I was in. 802,701. I had traveled over 800,000 years. Just then the storm ended. The scene was lit by the glow of the sun. Already I saw other vast shapes, Huge buildings with intricate parapets and tall columns. I removed my jacket. Then I heard voices and people came toward me. They were small creatures, perhaps only 4 feet high, clad in tunics girdled at the waist with a leather belt. They wore sandals on their feet and their legs and heads were bare. I noticed for the first time how warm the air was. One came toward me carrying a chain of beautiful flowers and placed it about my neck. They had a strange but very sweet and musical language, which I did not understand. They struck me as being a very beautiful and graceful people, but indescribably frail. At the sight of them, I suddenly regained confidence. I have nothing to fear. These people are so simple and childlike. Is this what has happened to man in 800,000 years? I thought to myself. Their little pink hands felt the time machine. No, keep away. You might get hurt. I removed the 2 levers which set the machine in motion, so no one could use it but me. The little people danced around me and pushed me along in a playful way. You want me to go with you? You want to show me to your friends, don't you? As I walked along with them, I realized that there were no small houses to be seen. The single house had vanished. These people lived in communities in these large palace-like buildings I'd seen in the distance. As we entered a building of colossal dimensions, more of the little people surrounded me. They took me into a great dining hall with many long tables and cushions scattered about. Upon the cushions, my hosts seated themselves, signing for me to do likewise. Yes, I'll be glad to join you. I am hungry. They seemed to have no meat or vegetables, for the entire meal consisted of large and succulent fruit. I tried to learn their speech, but it was difficult to learn from them, or to teach them, because they were so childlike. I finally discovered what they called themselves. I am man. Eloy. That evening, I went for a long walk alone. As I wandered about, I mused, where are their farms, their factories, their cities? Where is their work done? I came upon many ruins on that walk that showed vanished civilizations. It seemed to me that I had happened upon humanity on the wane. The ruddy sunset made me think of the sunset of mankind. My attention was attracted many times by several pretty little structures in the ground that had an unusual yellow metal canopy. I thought how odd it was that wells still existed in this strange time. I continued to wander until the moon had risen. The Eloy disappeared before dark. I decided I must find a place to sleep and headed in the direction of the White Sphinx. I found the lawn where I had landed, but it looked different now. Something was missing. My time machine is gone! At once, like a lash across the face, came the possibility of losing my own age, of being left helpless in this strange new world. The thought of it was an actual physical sensation. I could feel it grip me at the throat and stop my breathing. In another moment, I was in a passion of fear and running with great leaping strides to the spot where I had last seen the time machine. I searched the bushes frantically. How could they have moved it? They are so weak and childish. Am I to be trapped here in this unknown world? I wept with absolute wretchedness. Then, exhausted, I slept. I awoke in the freshness of the morning. As I saw the Eloy playing their childish games, I could not believe that they had taken my time machine. They had neither the strength nor the cunning. I returned to the spot where I had left the time machine. Examining the lawn, I found unmistakable marks in the grass. The machine had been dragged away, and there were odd, narrow footprints, which the Eloy could not have made. I followed the marks which led up to the pedestal and the White Sphinx. The time machine was in the pedestal. I went and rapped at the deep-framed panels which led into the building. Open up! Give me back my time machine! You there, come help me. Please help me. But the Eloi would not come near. There was something they feared about the pedestal. There was nothing I could do at that moment but try to learn more about the people. That way I might find out what was behind all of this. For the next few days, I tried to make friends with the little people. I talked to them and tried to learn their ways. On long walks through their lovely countryside, I saw no sign of planting or harvesting, no evidence of work of any kind. There were flowers only. The land was a perpetual garden. The Eloi's clothing was of a fine texture and beautifully sewn, but I saw no machines. Their tables were always piled high with fruit. But where was it grown? How was it brought to them? A peculiar feature which attracted my attention was the presence of the circular wells which I mentioned. Several, as it seemed to me, were of a very great depth. One lay by the path where I often walked. Like the others, it was rimmed with bronze and protected by a little cupola from the rain. I tried to ask the Eloi about it, but they would not answer, and they would not come near me. I peeked into the darkness, but I could see no gleam of water. Further, I threw a scrap of paper into it, and instead of fluttering slowly down, it was at once sucked swiftly out of sight. Then I heard a noise. It sounded like the pounding of heavy machines. Several possibilities flashed through my mind. Is it a mine? A factory? Was all the work done underground? Does someone live down there? That night as I slept, I was very restless and had an unreal feeling that something surrounded me. I woke with a start and had an odd fancy that some grayish animal had just rushed by me. Help! Help! What were they? Was it just a bad dream? The moon was setting, and upon the hill I thought I could see ghosts. Several times as I scanned the slope, I saw white figures. Twice I fancied I saw a solitary, white, ape-like creature running up the hill. The next morning I explored a dark passage and some ruins. Suddenly I halted spellbound. A pair of luminous eyes stared at me out of the darkness. At once the eyes darted sideways, and something white ran past me. I turned with my heart in my mouth and saw a queer little ape-like figure, its head held down in a peculiar manner, running past me. It was a dull white and had yellow hair on its head and down its back. I cannot even say whether it ran on all fours or only with its forearms held very low. I chased it outside past some of the Eloi, but I could not catch him as he leaped into one of those round well-like openings of which I have told you. I lit a match, and looking down, I saw a small white moving creature with large bright eyes which regarded me steadfastly as it retreated. It made me shudder. It was so like a human spider. It was clambering down the wall, and now I saw for the first time a number of metal foot and hand rests, forming a kind of ladder down the shaft. The Eloi refused to answer my questions about the strange creature that had just disappeared into the ground. And as they resumed their play, the truth gradually dawned on me. Man had not remained one species, but had differentiated into two distinct animals. The Eloi, who were gentle and helpless, and these other creatures who dwelled in darkness beneath the earth. The structures, like wells, were really passageways for the undergrounders. Somehow, in their underground civilization, they did all of the work for the Eloi. I wondered, what is hidden down there at the foot of the shaft? And then the thought occurred to me. These strange underground creatures must have taken my time machine. But why had they taken it? And why, too, if the Eloi were masters, could they not restore the machine to me? Later that day, I made a friend. I heard cries of distress, and I ran to where some of the little people were bathing in a pond. When I reached there, I discovered that one of the women was drowning, and none of the others made the slightest attempt to rescue the weak, crying little thing. I dived in and carried her safely to shore. The next day she came to me and presented me with these white flowers. Without thinking, I put some of the flowers in my pocket to examine later. The little woman became my one friend in that future time. I learned her name and taught her some words. And finally, with great effort, we were able to understand each other. What is your name? What do they call you?
Weena.
Weena. I am Man.
Man? Me Eloy. Eloy very good.
Who lives down there?
Morlocks. Morlocks very bad. Morlocks see only in dark. We fear night. Morlocks come at night. Morlocks eat Eloy.
Is that why the Eloy live in large groups in those big houses?
Yes, that is why.
Can you tell me more about the Morlocks?
No.
Then I will go see the Morlocks for myself.
No, don't go there. Don't go.
I am a strong man. I am not afraid. Goodbye, little Weena.
Do not go down there. Do not.
I felt over the parapet for the climbing hooks, and rather hastily I began to descend. I had to clamber down a shaft of perhaps 200 yards by means of the metal bars, which projected from the sides of the well. And these being adapted to the needs of a creature much smaller and lighter than myself, I was cramped and fatigued by the descent. Suddenly, one of the bars broke under my weight and almost swung me off into the blackness beneath. I grabbed another bar and was saved. After that experience, I did not dare rest again. Though my arms and back were acutely painful, I went on clambering down the sheer descent as quickly as possible. When I finally reached the bottom of the shaft, there was a horizontal tunnel. The sound of machines grew louder as I felt my way along the narrow passage. When I came to a large open space, I struck a match. Great shapes like big machines rose out of the dimness and cast grotesque black shadows. The place was very stuffy and oppressive. When the match went out, I was clutched and grabbed by several soft, damp hands. No, let me alone! Quickly, I struck another match. Light is the only thing that keeps them back. But I have only 4 matches left. By that light, I could see the stooping white creatures fleeing into dark gutters and tunnels, in which their eyes glared at me in the strangest fashion. I lit another match and made good my retreat to the narrow tunnel. I had scarcely entered when my light was blown out, and in the blackness I could hear the Morlocks coming after me again. Just as their clammy hands were on me, I lit my second match. You can scarce imagine how nauseatingly inhuman they looked. Those pale, chinless faces and great, lidless, pinkish-gray eyes. There was no mistaking that they were trying to haul me back. My last 2 matches lasted until I got to the shaft. As I started up the ladder, my feet were grabbed from behind. Kicking wildly, I fought my way up the rungs, while they stayed peering and blinking up at me. That climb seemed interminable to me. At last I reached the opening of the shaft, got over the well mouth somehow, and staggered into the blinding sunlight. Weena.
Man's safe. No Morlocks in sunlight.
For a time, I was unconscious. Later, I spoke with Weena of my experience. Tell me, Weena, do the Morlocks do all the work for the Eloy?
Yes.
But the Eloy fear the Morlocks.
I have said, Morlocks eat Eloy.
How did this happen? Why have men become 2 distinct species? One helpless and the other vile.
Weena does not know.
Apparently, the Morlocks let the Eloy live above ground because they don't want it. They have lived in darkness so many years, they now prefer it. But who originally banished the Morlocks underground? Were the Eloy once a master race? And are the Morlocks now the masters?
Weena does not know.
I know you don't know, you sweet, silly child. You just don't know. The next day, Weena and I went for a long walk. I, too, am afraid of the Morlocks, Weena. But I am not helpless. I will fight them. But how is the question? Matches are the best weapon, but I have none left. I must find some other weapon.
You are a man. You will fight the Morlocks.
We walked a great distance, perhaps 15 miles. It was early afternoon when I saw the distant pinnacles of a huge building. Weena, have you ever been to that building? What is in it?
It is pretty. I have never seen it.
Come, Weena, let us see what it is. We went along through the forest a few more miles. Then finally we approached the palace of green porcelain. It was deserted and falling into ruin. Along the face of it was an inscription in some unknown character. Ah, Weena, if you could only read, you might tell me what this means. Within the big valves of the door, which were open and broken, we found a long gallery whose walls were lined with a remarkable array of miscellaneous objects. Standing strange and gaunt in the center of the hall was a huge skeleton of a brontosaurus. Why, Weena, this is a museum.
What is a museum?
You will see, you will see. Going toward the side, I found the old familiar glass cases of our own time. But they must have been airtight to judge from the preservation of their contents. Others, however, contained only dust. What a pity, Weena. It will be impossible to trace the changes of men and animals during these thousands of years because of some broken glass.
Morlocks!
I could see in the dust a number of small, narrow footprints. Yes, the Morlocks are near. Come, Weena, I must find a weapon. We walked to a hall of colossal proportions with huge machines all broken down and corroded. You know I have a certain weakness for mechanism, and I was inclined to linger among them. I fancied that if I could solve their puzzles, I should find myself in possession of powers that might be of use against the Morlocks. I turned to a machine from which projected a lever. Clambering upon the stand, I put all my weight upon it, and it snapped off in my hands. Weena, this mace will be my weapon. Come with me. Perhaps we can find something else that will be useful. Look, Weena, arms. This rifle looks usable, and these cartridges are in an airtight case. We are in luck. I loaded the gun, held my breath, and pressed the trigger. These cartridges are dummies. They're no help at all. Let's look further. We then entered another room that must have been a gallery of technical chemistry. I went eagerly to every unbroken case, then... Matches, Weena! I found matches! If they only work. We're saved, Weena, we're saved! We have the one thing that makes the Morlocks helpless. Light.
We are saved! We are saved!
In another case, I found a sealed jar of camphor. Look, Weena, camphor. This will make an excellent candle. It's highly inflammable. Come with me. We will go back to your people. It was near sunset when we left the Green Palace. As we went back through the forest, I gathered wood. Pick up these small sticks, Weena. We may need this to build a fire to keep the Morlocks away. It was soon full night, and among the black bushes behind us, and dim against their blackness, I saw 4 crouching figures. Weena, we must run for it through the woods. Even with a fire, I wouldn't feel safe here. I will amaze our friends by lighting a fire here. Come on, let's go. With the fire blazing brightly behind us, we ran boldly into the woods. In a few minutes, the Morlocks surrounded us. They were on our heels, clutching at our clothes, grabbing for our faces. I freed one hand and lit the camphor. I held it flaring and saw the white backs of the Morlocks in flight amid the trees. When they had been pushed back, I looked around and found Weena unconscious at my feet. I lifted her in my arms, and then I realized I'd lost my sense of direction. I did not know which way was out of the forest. I was in a cold sweat. I had to think rapidly what to do. I determined the best thing was to encamp where we were and build a fire. I put Weena, still motionless, down upon the turf and began collecting sticks and leaves. Here and there, out of the darkness around me, the Morlock's eyes shone like carbuncles. Very soon I had a smoky fire of green wood blazing. The smoke made my eyes heavy. I was exhausted, and I slept. I awoke, feeling the Morlock's hands upon me. In an instant, I knew what had happened. My fire had gone out, and the bitterness of death came over my soul. I was caught by the neck, by the hair, by the arms, and pulled down. It was indescribably horrible in the darkness to feel all those soft creatures heaped upon me. I felt as if I were in a monstrous spider's web. I was overpowered and went down. I felt little teeth nipping at my neck. I rolled over and grabbed my iron lever. It gave me strength, and I struggled to my feet, shaking the human rats from me. Holding the bar, I swung at them with all my strength. The woods seemed full of the horrible creatures. Then, for no reason, they turned from me and started to run away. Suddenly, the woods seemed to grow light. I turned around. The whole forest was aflame. It was my first fire coming after me. With Weena in my arms, I fled. Once, the flames outflanked me on 3 sides. I ran to the left, then to the right, zigzagging around the flames. Finally, I reached a small open space on a hill. We're safe here, Weena. The fire will not reach us this high. The forest burned on all sides, and the Morlocks, blinded by the flames, were helpless. Several times that night, I tried to tell myself it was just a nightmare, but it was no dream. It was real, ghastly, but real. Finally, the fire burned itself out.
Day. It is day. We do not need to be afraid. We can go back now.
I could now get my bearings. With Weena, I made my way to the Eloy. After the terror of the night, I was exhausted. I slept in the bright midday sun and awakened a little before sunset. I was refreshed and thought carefully over the problems I was facing. All I was really thinking about was how to get out of that place. I did not wish to stay there another minute. Men had become useless and terrible. I had to get away. I went toward the White Sphinx, where I knew the Morlocks had dragged my time machine. I was armed only with my crowbar and the determination to return to my own time. And then came a most unexpected thing. As I approached the pedestal of the Sphinx, I found the bronze valves were open. They had slid down into grooves. At that, I stopped short before them, hesitated, then slowly entered. There is my time machine! And this is too easy. The Morlocks think they can outsmart me, do they? I felt in my pockets for the control levers of the time machine. Then I stepped fully inside the pedestal. As I examined the machine, the doors of the pedestal slid shut, just as I had expected. I was in the dark, trapped, or so the Morlocks thought. Again, the Morlocks' hands were upon me. I quickly fitted the levers on the machine. I could already hear their murmuring laughter as they came toward me. I pushed the lever just as they started to maul me. The next moment, I was hurtling through time. The darkness fell from my eyes, and I found myself in the same gray light and tumult I have already described. I clung to the machine as it swayed and vibrated. I watched the years speed by. Then, I was back in the laboratory. I was greatly relieved. I was back in the present. Everything was exactly as it was before. Only my time machine had moved from the southeast corner of the laboratory to the northwest corner. That is where the Morlocks moved it when they dragged it into the base of the pedestal. Incredible. Incredible? Yes. Take it as a lie, if you wish. I hardly believe it myself. And yet...
Are those the flowers Weena gave you for saving her life? I have never seen anything like them.
Yes. I have them to comfort me now. They prove that even when mind and strength had gone, gratitude and tenderness still lived on in the heart of man.